What's up, guys? Big Papa Drock back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and as you can see, I am not alone. I am joined by my clanmate and the arena master himself, Cruisin'. Welcome to the channel. This is actually our first time collabing, just the two of us. We've done collabs with other people, but this is the first time you've been on my channel where it's just you and me, and we're gonna talk arena because, baby, as you say in your videos, it's all about arena. So welcome on in, dude.
Oh, thanks for having me here, bro. And it's always a pleasure to share our thoughts, and even more when we're talking about arena. As everybody knows, that's my beloved area of the game.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And if you guys don't know, Cruisin' is not only somebody who has his own awesome endgame account that is, I think, top 100 in live arena by itself, but he also is the mastermind behind Doc Moreau's account, which was for a very long time #1 ranked on the leaderboard. Now I think you guys are #2, just because it's basically impossible to do enough battles to keep up with like 4 people playing one account, but that's a whole nother story. And if you've ever watched my live arena streams, you know that for a long time, Doc Moreau was my greatest nemesis, and I didn't know that Cruisin' was the one driving it. All of those Doc versus Drock battles that were so much fun. So I'm so glad to have you here, dude. And guys, please do me a favor, drop Cruisin' a sub. Go check his channel out. I will link it down below in the description. He's got phenomenal channel, lots of great entertaining and educational content around arena. So speaking of arena, we have got a very spicy topic today on which we have a difference of opinions. We have not talked about this at all prior to starting this record. So I'm excited to see what Cruisin' thinks. But the topic of today's video is I hate this meta. And that is because I genuinely hate this live arena meta. So, Cruisin', you stand on the other side of this, right? You enjoy this meta more than the previous one, yes?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. And I think really let's define where this meta shifted, because I think to me there's a clear demarcating line for the most recent meta, and I would argue that it's when pinpoint accessories and pinpoint gear came into the game. For the most recent meta, that's what really changed stuff at the moment. Now, you could also argue that mythical champions coming into the game would be its own meta shift as well. So you could kind of lump those in, but would you agree that the pinpoint stuff is what makes up the most recent meta?
Yeah, the pinpoint is the meta that is happening at this moment. We had a few meta changes in the past 6 months, I would say, or more. For a year and more, we had a meta based on Taros and Marichka. All the arena was around them. Everything you had a concept as strongest were about them. Then we had, at the same time, we had a meta change with 3 champions that were Armans, Narcissus, and Ancora. Narcissus and Ancora came to try to mitigate a little bit the meta of Taros and Mari. By the same time, Armand came into the game and he changed everything. Everything.
Yes, he certainly did. And you know, I think it's important here. I hate all of these metas. In fact, I hate every meta going back to before polymorph was in the game, before Taurus Marichka were in the game, before Stoneskin were in the game. That's how much of a hater I am, guys, when it comes to these metas. If you could just teleport me back to a time before all of those things were introduced, that is my personal favorite time of when arena existed. Think like the Leorius, Necrit type time. Like that was kind of my personal favorite. So I'm curious, just out of curiosity, what would you say is your personal favorite meta? Is it right now or is it a different one?
I like the way it is right now, but the way it is right now is a bit extreme. You know, you having the rulers of the arena are extremely fast, extremely resistant, extremely lucky.
Yeah, the RNG, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we're living a meta of extremes, and before we didn't had a meta like these. For example, when we had the Cupidus meta when he was revamped, Uh, there were a lot of teams that tried to mitigate it. He was stronger than the others, but there were teams to mitigate it and more accessible teams. You just needed a legendary or a reaction or something, or to be slower than the
Yeah.
opponent to win. So it was a very, very slow meta. The slowest player would win the battle. And right now we see the opposite. The fastest player has a huge advantage because of pinpoint and the bomba meta.
Yes.
Not only pinpoint, but the debuffs. The debuffs came back in a way they are dominating the arena.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
for 1 year, we kept debuffs away as much as we could, and now we're getting the process the other way around. We are trying to put as many debuffs as we can.
Yeah. This is a really good point too, because I think anyone who's watched my channel knows that I have railed against polymorph since the moment it was basically introduced, because in my opinion, it was one of those things that took so many champions out of contention of actually being in the meta. And I would say, and I think you would agree with me on this, the one really good thing about the current meta is there is a large amount of champions that are viable. There are a lot of different things, a lot of different strategies you can do. I would say from a pro standpoint, that is my personal favorite part of the meta right now. Would you agree with that statement or disagree?
Perfectly agree, and that's my main reason to liking it compared to the other ones we had previously.
Yeah.
The
And
amount of champions we can use.
And I think you were absolutely right when you said that one of the downsides to previous metas were, from the moment Taurus and Marius were introduced, they were the meta. And you saw them in every single live arena fight that we did. Someone was picking one or the other. If somebody picked a Taurus, you were picking Marichka. If they picked Marichka, you were picking a Taurus, because you could not let somebody have both. It was extremely difficult. Yeah. So that is the one really good thing. But I want to talk about what you just mentioned, where it's a meta of extremes, because I agree with you. I agree with you here immensely. But I also think you're right in that it's still extremely slanted towards speed. And that is my major issue with the current meta right now. Like, I have begged them to fix polymorph, right? They introduced pinpoint. A lot of people are like, oh, it's fixed. Wrong. It's not. It's not fixed, because this is not, in my opinion, how they should have addressed trying to reduce the strength of polymorph as a debuff. And so as a result of that, and because they made pinpoint accessories give you, speed off of 2, we are living in this world where basically gear is the absolute number one determining factor. If you have the best gear, if you are the fastest, it is really damn hard to beat somebody. And I don't know about you, but I've been trying to build consistent Ghost second teams using tons of reaction, using bolster to try to deal with Marius, using all different sorts of stuff. And I can only get them to work like 20% of the time versus the top players. Have you had a different experience?
Usually I am the one trying to push for the extreme stats on Dog's account. But when I'm playing on my own account, it's exactly opposite. So I always play with teams that are not based on speed, because I know my top speed on my own account is 430, 440, what's not even close to the fastest guys out there. But the interesting things, because of the number of champions we can use and possibly in a viable way use, you add a layer of RNG, or it's another layer of RNG, but you add a counter. There are countermeasures that you can put to try to mitigate the very fast opponents. For example, the very fast opponents, when I play Doc Moro accounts, I basically 9% of my battles I try to go faster, because usually I can. And my win rate dropped because of that. Because the very fast team has lower amount of countermeasures on their build-ups. You want to win fast, you focus your team into fast winning, and that gives you lower amount of countermeasures. So if something goes wrong, and we have a lot of layers of RNG on the game right now, if something goes wrong, to turn back the table that is already turned into your disfavor is really hard when you use the speed team. That's why I think it's difficult. Yes, it is, because the people with higher status needs to have
Yeah.
advantage against the others. But at the same time, his advantage is also as disadvantage, not as advantage when something goes wrong, and that many of occasions that happens to go on you're playing a speed team that you have to provoke when you're not going as fast as your opponent.
So this is interesting. Do you feel then that it's balanced?
Yeah.
So you think it's balanced? Okay. So I would completely disagree with you. Only because from my experience, you know, when I'm and I'll be clear here, like it has to be certain players, right? Like players who've played the game 4 or 5 years typically, whose gear is literally incredible. We're talking quintuple speed rolls. Their champions are going 480, 490 speed, which sounds insane, but I think that's pretty much where the fastest accounts are. Would you say it's around there, 480, 490 on some of their fastest champions?
Not in every champion, but some, yes.
Yeah, not in every champion. That's the other hard part of this too, is that you have to be able to gear, if you're going to go speed, you have to be able to gear at least 3 to 4 champions extremely fast, because if somebody selects one of those champions that you know you can't select, now you're screwed. Like if you only have a super fast Shuzen, that's not going to get it done. So that's also the big part of the advantage, is if you've amassed a massive amount of gear and you've gotten very lucky, which I seemingly never do with speed rolls, as the many videos I've done can attest to. I
saw the last one.
You saw the last one? Yeah, God. The pain is real. Hundreds of thousands of energy for literally no triples during the video, not even, you know, triple or quad. So yeah, the pain is real.
I laughed because it was exactly the same for me.
Okay, at least I'm not alone. Okay, you got owned too. Plarium remains undefeated. We lose clearly, but so this is interesting, because I would argue, so I don't disagree with you. I think you're right about you have a much smaller margin of error on a speed team. I think this is very true, because typically you're not going to be necessarily as tanky. You know, if you get polymorphed on one champion, you're still definitely screwed if it's your damage dealer or a champion that's very important to your team. Though it is a little less likely now with pinpoint. But what I've seen from the top players is that it seemingly doesn't matter. Like I have a pretty strong account, and I swear to God, there are a couple people that they'll pick a Gizmac, they'll pick a Marius, you know, they'll maybe get a Shuzen and Arbeus, and I'm left with, who the hell can I ban? If I ban one of these guys, it doesn't matter. They're still faster than me, and they still do enough damage that even when I build and cruise, and I'm talking full reaction on every champion, ultra high resist, doesn't matter, because they still get locked out by Crixia because she ignores resist. I just can't seem to be able to defeat that RNG, or to have some level of RNG come into play, or at least be able to survive so that I can even take a turn. And it's driving me crazy, bro. It's driving me crazy, because I feel like the one thing I liked about the Taurus and Marichka meta is I felt like the counters were straightforward, where it's like, okay, if somebody plays, you know, for example, Sung Wukong, I'm playing Harima. I know that's a hard counter for that because I need to reduce ignore defense. Like I feel like they were more defined previously, whereas now they feel a little more nebulous to me, which is maybe why I'm not enjoying it as much.
That's the challenging of this meta. Previous meta, you had 2 champions that you wanted to mitigate. Then we had 5 to 4 champions that we wanted to mitigate. Now we have 20 that we want to try to avoid. What's impossible. So if you have similar rosters, you're not only playing against the champions you're facing. You need to mitigate the picks. You need to have a picture of stats both are using, but you also need to know the strategy your opponent uses. Yeah. That's very important, because if you're facing, for example, Lazarius, the mythical lizard, if he's built in speed, you have to deal with it in a way. If he's built in stone skin, full damage, you have to deal with him in another way. So knowing your opponent, it's very important right now. Really, really important. And if you have no knowledge about your opponent, you have to trust your stats
Yeah.
and the counter picks that are natural. For example, if you see a Rotos, you want to go with a UDK.
Mhm.
Natural counter picks. As you said, if you see a Yukong, you try to go with Harima. We got used to use the same champions always. The
There's some
same
truth to
champions
that.
always.
There's
Yeah.
definitely
And
truth.
when we try to face these 20 champions that are in the meta with the same 20 that we used, we're gonna have a hard choice. Because if you're using the same strategy and your opponent has the same champions with better stats, you're logically gonna lose more battles than
Yes.
you're gonna win if you're facing a
Which
stronger opponent.
Which you should. You should lose more. And I've always been on that side where if someone has a significant gear advantage over you, significant champion advantage over you, they should win the majority of fights. That's how games work, right? They're stronger.
Yeah.
They have better gear. They should win the majority of times. And I think that's a good thing. But something that specifically, I'll give you an example of why this meta I think is so toxic is it's a speed meta, right? You know, resistance is extremely difficult to pull off because of mythicals ignoring resistance. But the other aspect that I really hate is you used to have some pretty reliable counters to speed in years past. You had reaction, you had necrit, you had shields. Most champions didn't ignore shields. Now there are multiple champions that can ignore shields. And on top of that, and this is the big thing, you had champions like Torment. Torment was a genuinely viable, useful champion the vast majority of the time in the speed meta. But now it's really tough to use him because of two things. One, intercept, which completely negates what he does. So it's not even that like you have a chance for it to work. It will not work. It will not freeze. If other champions are built in intercept, he will steal one of those stacks. They will not be frozen. The other thing, which I think is even more damaging and even more frustrating from a strategy perspective, is Stone Skin. So you can have someone build their nukers now in Stone Skin and Savage, right? So they still maintain their damage, but they have Stone Skin, which means Torment, who was so important to counter speed, is now basically worthless. And that to me is why you're seeing the speed meta run rampant. And another great example, like, right, Hegemon. Hegemon is a champion, like, okay, cool. He was completely out of the meta for a long time because of Stone Skin. Now he's kind of crept back in. But the problem is still people have multiple champions in Stone Skin, which he does not affect whatsoever. So this is one of the things I personally hate about this meta, because I have seen, at least on my side, that the person that goes first, the vast majority of the time, is going to win. Everything else be damned. Because you can't deal with it, right?
That's the magic of it, for my point of view. You can't have everything at the same time. If you're going full speed, you can't go Stone Skin.
Mm-hmm.
If you go in full speed, you can't go reaction. If you go in Stone Skin, you can't go full speed, or you need to choose between them. For Nuker, for example, if you go Stone Skin, you need to choose between Pinpoint or Savage. So you have three things defining the meta:
Mm-hmm.
the speed, the Stone Skin, and the Pinpoint. That are the three keys to the meta. And you can't have the three of them at the same time. So you're gonna have to have mixed amounts of speed, Stone Skin, and Pinpoint on your champions, and you have to have strategies to go through it. Because if you see, for example, Marius is the strongest champion in this meta, in my opinion.
Yes, I would agree with you
Because
100%.
out of the conditions we have right now, he's almost untankable. Everything you do, he can overcome
Yes.
because of his kit. He has an extremely amazing kit.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Plower. They launched a free champion that is the strongest champion in the game.
He's what
Even more
Quintus should have been, hypothetically, or what Quintus I hoped would be, with like an unblockable buff strip, basically, except Marius is a much better version because it's an AoE and it doesn't trigger polymorph, because it's just
Yeah.
knocking down your buffs overall. And I think, like, I don't know if you agree with this, but would you say a good thing because of how buff heavy stuff had gotten? Like I feel like Marius is a good champion to have. Like, yeah, he is insanely strong, but I'm glad they put him in rather than not. Do you disagree or agree with that?
I think it was a good thing they added it,
Okay.
because you have a champion that I love PvP content,
Yes.
but he's a champion that can shine in every area of the game. So it doesn't matter if you love Clan Boss, if you love Hydra, if you love PvP, if you love Doom Tower. You have a champion that's godlike in every area of the game, and he's a free champion,
Yes.
I would say. So I had to have him on the game the way it is, then does not having him. For me, it's way better than it is.
Yeah. So
It
then
was before it.
we agree. We agree. I'm glad they added him in. I have a really important question for you because I still firmly believe that polymorph is overpowered. Do you believe that or not?
Yes. But the polymorph is one of the few things holding the meta to be in a non-reversible way. For example, if you lose in the speed battle every time and you had no polymorph, your chances of winning goes down a lot higher
Yeah.
because they will have to give up something to have pinpoint, or they will give up damage, or they will give up safety of the stone skin. Something you're gonna have to pay, or you're gonna pay speed, or you're gonna pay the RNG effect without pinpoint, or you're gonna pay with safety without stone skin. One of them you're gonna have to give up.
Yes. Yeah.
Only a few champions can have all the three of them, like Odin. He's a champion that can have all the three of them.
Yes,
at
he
the
can
same
do
time.
everything. He can do damage. He can do. He's an insanely busted champion.
Yeah, only a few champions. You can count them on your hand. Only one hand.
Yeah, only one hand for the moment, but knowing Plarium, I'm sure it'll be
Yeah.
7 hands very soon as they introduce
So-
30 new champions that you have to pull for and do things differently with.
Yeah. So going through that lines, you have to your roster that was focused on that champions that are gonna use 100% of my battles. These 10 champions are going to play around only the 10 champions that I had built. Now you need 20,
Now you need
25, 30.
25.
Because you want to have the same strategy 3 times. For example, you had a defensive nuker. He only needed to have Stone Skin and Savage. Now you need a defense nuker with maybe Pharaoh and Savage. Now you need a defense nuker with Pinpoint and Savage. Now you need a defense nuker with Pinpoint and Stone Skin. Now you need a defense nuker with Savage and Stone Skin. You need more options.
This is proving my point a bit about why I dislike this meta so much. Now, it's very well known I am a large spender in this game. I am nowhere near the largest. There are people that have dwarfed me in spending. It's also very well known that Doc is a large spender in this game, though I would argue also not the largest spender. There are several that are above that account. But this is also part of why I hate this meta. Now more than ever, this is what I would call a 1% meta. A 1% meta because if you're not in the 1% of people that have enough gear that's rolled strongly enough to cover 30 freaking champions, you are in deep trouble at the high end. Like you are really going to be in a rough place. And that is one of the things that I do think is tough about this current meta, in that I think we needed a better place than where we were, right? With just the Taurus Mariska polymorph, because it really was Taurus Mariska every time. And I think that was bad for the game. My concern now is, like, not only do you have to have almost every champ, it seems like, to compete, but you have to have top tier gear to gear so many different champions to counter so many different things. And it's a good and a bad thing, but I think it's tough from the perspective of, Raid is very much a pay to win game, right? And it feels like more than ever before, the credit card is one of the absolute big determiners of whether or not you're going to win a battle, with the exception of like the crazy RNG stuff like polymorph, which again has been turned down in terms of how often it occurs, but unfortunately is just as ridiculously overpowered as it always was, and should have been fixed in a different way, in my opinion. I hate that they put pinpoint in the game to deal with it. I'm not a fan of it. I'm going to do an entirely separate video on that, but yeah, so that's like part of my issue with this current meta is it just feels like it doesn't matter how much I've spent. I am at more of a disadvantage than ever before with an admittedly crazy roster of champs. I mean, I've got pretty much every damn thing under the sun with the exception of Nice. and it still doesn't seem to matter. I don't know. And it's driving me crazy. And this just may be like sour grapes, where it's like, I was dominant, I was a beast, you know, and now I just can't compete.
Yeah, since we're living a meta of streams, you could compete very well when everybody used the same parameters. People were very close because the builds were very close. We didn't need extreme speed, we didn't need extreme resistance. We needed the medium. Everybody was using half speed, half strong nukers, half tank, half speed supports, half accuracy, half speed debuffers. They were using everything half.
Yeah.
Now we are using everything on the stream. So when that happens, the gap, because everybody was almost at the same line, the ones with extremely powerful gear gonna have an advantage, and I don't think that's unfair.
That's such a good point. Such a good point. I like the point you just made here. So you don't think that is unfair? Like, understandably so. I get that because people have played for longer.
Yeah. For example, I was talking with a free-to-play friend yesterday, and we were talking of ways of countering the bomb meta as a free-to-play champion. And there is a champion that you almost don't see on the top tiers, but he almost destroyed the meta. That's Cardinal. Cardinal is a champion that can absolutely destroy this meta. But you need to avoid some champions. You need to avoid Crixia, you need to avoid Yumek or something that, depending on the picks you have, if you have a huge amount of mythicals, a low amount of mythicals, no mythicals, you can build her to be a must ban to your opponent. What makes you have room to do other things? For example, Armans was the must ban before this meta.
Yes.
When you saw an Armans, you have to first pick him and first ban him.
Yes.
It was a tradition in the arena.
Horrible meta. Horrible meta. Another god awful meta. I mean, God, I just feel like we have gone from bad meta to bad meta for years now. But yeah, the Armand's meta was toxic and one I truly hated.
Now,
for sure.
We have more options that we want to ban, but picking your opponent's ban or making him be obligatorily wanting to ban one of your champions is a huge advantage on this meta. Because, for example, if he's playing with bombs and you put Cardinal and Marichka, he needs to pick one of them out or his strategy won't work. And now you have two champions that mitigate his entire team on with each one they have to ban or it's gonna fail.
So this is a good point though, because I feel like there are still champions in this current meta that it doesn't even matter. So let's say you pick a Cardinal, right? And obviously the reason why you pick a Cardinal is because of her ability to revive everybody to max turn meter, right? Like that's what you're looking for. Everybody else dies, she stays alive, she's ultra tanky, she lives, and then she revives everybody to max turn meter. But the problem that I seem to have, because I think that's a great strategy. That's actually like, oh, that's an awesome strategy. What a big brain play. But the issue that I keep having is, let's say you're facing a team that has Shuzen, Arbaeus, Gizmak, and Sulfurion, and someone picks a Crixia as well. What are you supposed to do? Because the problem there is Gizmak, for example, is unresistible. Like, I guess you could hypothetically try to build your Cardinal in Feral Stoneskin or build her in Immunity Stoneskin and hope that you are strong enough to still survive. But even that is a guarantee, because then someone might use an Arbaeus to just strip you anyway. Right? Yeah. Like there's so many champions that do 30 different things that you could have a great strategy and you can have great gear and it still won't work because you only get one ban and someone can overwhelm you with just...
There is no perfect strategy, but if you have a complete roster, you're gonna try to mitigate their peaks during your own peaks.
Yes.
That's, you need to for example, if you're going to play Cardinal, you want to try to take away Crixia, you want to try to take away Marius, you want to try to take away Arbas. So you're gonna play Cardinal plus two other obligatory champions that you're gonna have to try. At the same time, you're gonna masculate your team because Cardinal is a slower champion. He's a
Yeah, you're
tanky
gonna
champion.
wait till
If
the
you're going
end.
to Cardinal in our boss, your opponent have to be prepared to win the speed battle or lose the speed battle. So he have to be prepared for both. He has to be prepared. For example, if you use a Cardinal and a bomb champion at the same time, your opponent needs to be prepared too. If he loses the speed battle, he will survive the bombs. If you win the speed battle, will he be able to kill you? You have to add these layers. It's not
I'm
a
just
team that
laughing
you
at
just
this.
go there and win.
Like, it's just so funny to me because like Cardinal should be a reliably good strategy, but like there's 30 different other things that someone can pick if they have a wider champion roster that you're not going to be able to do a damn thing with, which again I think is what to me is one of the worst parts about this meta, where I guess I can see where you're coming from, right? Where like having more options is good. I think that is a
At the
good
same
thing.
time, there are champions they are adding to the game that are extremely counter to this meta. But they are so new that we are not seeing them that much. For example, Vulcanos.
Volcanos.
Vulcanos can destroy
Yes,
this meta. If
Volcanos
you
would
have
be the one.
on
Yep.
live arena, you won't see two Vulcanos. But if you're going to classic arena with this new fusion and Vulcanos, my friend, if you have a Sif in the other team, you lose.
Yeah.
Because Sif is going to accelerate and kill your entire team. 5-second battles. It doesn't matter what you have. Unless you have everybody in Pharaoh, you're going to lose. And
Yep.
if you have everybody in Pharaoh and they have the right amount of demon spawn, you're going to lose the same way.
You're absolutely correct though, because Volcanos is one of the hard counters to most of the stuff you're seeing with speed. It's just obviously very, 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 very few people have him, and it's crazy that it's like that's one of the hardest counters is just this champion, right?
Yeah,
you
but
know,
they are adding more. Did you have already tried the new dwarf or not?
which one? Oh yeah, I saw that you pulled the new dwarf, right? The new void.
This champion is incredible against this meta.
He looked
Incredible.
broken as heck from what I saw because he's putting stone skin on himself, correct?
Yeah,
and prevents his death. Yes, which
and
is
at the same
massive.
time, he does an AOE nuke if you try to kill him.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
and an AOE nuke that gives you more damage if you have buffs. So if you go first, you buff your team, and you try to kill it, he's going to do exactly same thing with you. And he's going to not be kill it. He's going to kill you.
Here's RaidShadowLegends for you guys. You can't compete. Just gotta pull more shards, baby. Just gotta pull more shards and pray that you get the RNG gods on your side. And of course, the deeper we go into this game, the harder it is to get the champion that you're pulling for. Oh God, Cruising, you're not giving me hope here, bro. You're not giving me hope. But I do have a couple of big questions for you. First and foremost, what do you think are the top 5 meta champions right now and the current meta? And then follow-up question, which is, if you were going to change something about arena right now, live arena specifically, and it can't be stuff like, oh yeah, make classic arena blind or anything like that. I'm talking about just the meta itself. What would you change?
Okay. The top 5 champions, I would say Marius is the first. I think Odin is the second, at my opinion. The third one is Susan, because she's the queen of speed, and we're living the speed meta. I think she fits so well in many teams. The fourth one is Comidus, because you need to be prepared to him if you're facing him in the other team. And the fifth one is another support that is Marichka. I think Marichka is stronger now than she was in the Marichka meta.
Actually, completely agree with you.
Yeah, she can counter so many instances of speed teams, and at the same time, she's extremely trustful as a support, healer, reviver, and everything. She does everything. This champion is incredible. So I think that's my top 5 champions. But as I said, there are so many good champions and possibility to this meta that is hard to pick only 5, because I think we have now our 30 best champions.
40 different champions you could use, which is, again, I do think it is good that we have more choice. I want to make that clear. I do think that is good. I just wish there were more reliability beyond certain strategies. Like, to me, I get enjoyment out of stuff where I know that if someone does something, I can reliably counter it. My big brain can say, hey, they picked these champions that have these advantages. I know these are the counters. This is the rock, paper, scissors element. And I think why I hate it so much is because it feels like scissors doesn't actually defeat paper anymore. Paper is now made of steel and it breaks scissor. Too bad, you lose.
Yeah, you want things that you can see in advance what's going to happen, and you know, oh, I lost. Oh, I don't lost.
Yes.
But now on this meta, you have so many variables inside the battle that I'm going to win, I'm going to win, I'm going to win, I lose.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I think that's why I don't enjoy it as much, because I felt like in the past I had more control, less RNG based, like less RNG of do they have stone skin, do they have pinpoint, do they have this, do they have that. I have more control of like, okay, I'm picking on champions that I think counter stuff. I have a general idea of how they might build these champions, and therefore I can be reliably certain about how to counter this. And like there still was RNG before. Let's get very clear. Like this is an RNG heavy game where God knows I've been a sheep my entire freaking life playing RaidShadowLegends. So okay, that makes sense.
I got that disease now.
Oh yeah, you have I transferred my sheep to you?
Yeah, probably. I'm sheep infected.
Bro, I'm so sorry, because it is not a fun disease to have, and I still think to this day the most frustrating thing in this entire game that still, in my opinion, has not been fixed correctly. But again, that's a separate video that I've done that I'm going to rant about, because I know people mostly hate hearing me rant about it, and I don't give a damn. I'm still going to rant until it's actually fixed correctly. But all that being said, what would you change? If you're going to change one thing in today's arena to improve it, what would you do?
It's gonna seems like we have talked about that many times, but I would not twist polymorph as much as I would consider to twist polymorph a few months later. But I would just reduce. I would just change one thing. I want polymorph to have the 6-star effect removed. Not the part of the percentage, but the unresistible part of it. Because we are living a meta that polymorph is the hardest counter to the meta right now.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you lose in the speed battle, polymorph is your first layer of shield. It's your stone skin in the left hand and the right hand. I'm looking at me
sheep in the other. You're holding look at me! Behold, I am the stone shepherd.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. If you lose in the speed battle, you say, okay, I'm gonna have to pray to the gods of my stone skin and the gods of my polymorph.
I pray I don't get my stone skin stripped, and then I pray they become a sheep. I love it. Yeah. I love that that's where we're at. You're so right. But okay, so you're saying remove the irresistible aspect of polymorph. That's the number one thing you do.
So you can have lower amount not lower amount, many amounts of possibilities, but less amount of diversity over the blessings you're gonna use in a team. Right now, we would see no more polymorph in many speed teams, because the speed teams doesn't need the polymorph, and you won't play polymorph on these champions. But because of the meta of speed against speed against speed, you sometimes add one polymorph to one champion just to have that RNG, and that changes the battle. If you add the effect of not being if you take away the effect of not being unrestable, the amount of champions that could do that would diminishes, and we're gonna have more fair battles. If you want to put a debuff on someone, you need to pay the price for that. That is to put the accuracy. Or you're gonna lose speed, or you're gonna lose survivability, or you're gonna have to change your set for that. That's the price to land a debuff.
Yeah,
and I think more champions need to pay that price.
That's a good change. Now. I like that. I would make that change too. And funny enough, if I were going to change anything about Arena, it would be, of course, polymorph, because I do still think that they haven't correctly addressed this level of RNG. I would absolutely do what you're saying. Don't make it irresistible anymore, but I would still change the relative strength of it, because for me, I still think it's too strong. And I think especially in a speed meta where people are faster than ever. If your champion becomes a sheep, and God forbid they are a sheep for 2 turns, you're cooked. Like you're
100 the speed.
like it's
They're gonna have 5 turns in front of you.
yeah, they're gonna take 30 turns to your 1 turn, and you're gonna come out half health, and you're gonna lose all your buffs. And I mean, like, it's just still insanely strong. Again, I'll do a different video on that because I still truly hate this blessing more than anything. God, I hate this blessing. But this is interesting, you know. So like, you're opening my eyes to certain things. I still hate this meta, so that hasn't changed. I know you still really enjoy it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see the sides, because I think there are good arguments on both sides, as there always are, for why things change or why they don't change, or why we like change or why we disagree with it. So
yeah. But one more thing. I don't
let me
think
hear
this meta is on the stable version yet. I think he's evolving. We are not have the period of time that we only had Marius Kentauros. On this meta, we are not having that period that we have everything on the table yet. I think they're still adding the things to the table to make it complete. And I have faith that when they settle the table, it's going to be a good table.
Oh.
So for us to have a good dinner.
You have faith? Ooh. That's,
Someone has to.
We're gonna do a follow-up video in 6 months, and we're gonna check and see if that faith was rewarded. So you can bet on that. I'm gonna absolutely have you come back, and we're gonna do a little how's the table looking now? Is the table missing 3 legs?
I hope that is going to be me. I told you.
I hope so. God knows I hope so, because I really want to get to a place where I enjoy live arena again. And for me personally, really ever since like I enjoyed it, it was frustrating for sure. Prior to really like the big change that kind of ruined it for me was when they changed how blessings work, where every champion had polymorph suddenly. Where like, yeah, you didn't trigger it per individual debuff.
Nerf.
Yeah, they nerfed. They buffed it. Like they buffed it, because then every single champion could wear polymorph, and it didn't matter that it could only trigger once per champion. It could, it was still going to trigger, because at 25% hypothetically, or 20%, it's just going to happen. You can't effectively run your teams. I think that's when I really fell out of love with live arena, and I would like to fall in love again, so we can have our Doc versus Drock battles. And I can get my ass kicked, because now it's a speed meta, and no way I can compete with Doc's account for speed. But I'll try, damn it. And you know what? I did beat Cartman, and I beat Husky multiple times with a Ghost second team both times. In fact, I beat Cartman 4 times in a row. So your boy's still got it up here, even if he doesn't show it off as much. But anything else you want to add, Cruz? And anything you think we missed in talking about this current meta?
Oh, I think we both showed up our views about the case, and we have expectations for it to progress or not.
To progress, yeah.
There's always that possibility. So, I am a person of faith. So
yes, you were an optimist. I am a pessimist. But that's why we get along. So guys, listen, do me a favor, please go to Cruz's channel, give him some love. I know you are aiming to get to the test server, which I believe requires 8,000 subs, if I remember correctly, unless they changed it. But 8,000 subs, so help Cruz and get there. I know the test server, because you do a lot of PvE stuff as well as PvP. That's kind of, you do both, and I know the test server will be big for you, so help him out, guys. Cruzin, thank you so much for coming on the channel, my IPR brother, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you in a live arena battle soon, and I'm sure you'll be kicking my ass, so I can't wait for it. I'll be raging, you can guarantee, behind the monitor while you're laughing and smiling. We are the yin and yang of live arena and of RaidShadowLegends. But thank you so much for coming on.
I'm afraid in a battle between us two now, there will be 8 ships in the battle.
Honest to God, I kind of want to, maybe we can actually achieve that. Maybe you and I just message on Discord before in battle and be like, can we create an all sheep battle? And in fact, I actually think we should do that next time. Next time I see you in live arena, if I'm streaming, I'm gonna literally message you on Discord and I'm gonna say it's time, and you're gonna say yes. Sheep off. Whoever gets to 4 sheeps first wins, and the other person must leave the battle.
Agreed.
Done. Shake on it. That's done. That's what we're doing. Oh, God. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I will see you soon, and we're definitely doing that sheep off because I love that idea. But, guys, this has been Big Papa Drock and Cruisin', and we are out. But before we go, I should have said, don't forget to let us know what you think in the comments down below, because obviously these are just our opinions. Some of you may side with Cruisin', some of you may side with me, some of you may think we're both wrong. Let us know respectfully in the comments down below. I am really curious to hear what your personal experiences are, and also kind of where you're at in live arena, because if you are a high-end player, it's a very different experience from where you are in mid-tier versus low tier now, more than ever. So let us know that too. I would really like to see what you think. And now that I've said that, now Big Papa Drock and Cruisin' are out. See y'all later.